Wow, guys. I just found out that Graham Hancock is absolutely obsessed with me. Seriously, this came as a surprise. It was only a few months ago that he posted on his social media accounts that, quote, "You won't be seeing much more on this page about Flint Dibble. I'm done with the guy." But just this week, he couldn't resist and shared a new video called Debunking the Debunking Industry. In that video that he posted on Thursday, I am mentioned 42 times.
Vicious attacks, and from the same group of people. John Hoops at Kansas University, Flint Dibble at the University of Cardiff. And here's a little bit of a clip from Flint's derisive attitude towards a very serious researcher. Flint Dibble attacking Ancient Apocalypse. Flint Dibble, of course, got in on the act, and actually they gave Flint Dibble an award, the Occam Award, for precisely for debating me on the Joe Rogan Show.
Again, listening to Flint Dibble is a great way to put your foot in your mouth. Let me be real clear about this. Flint, Dan Fallu, a bunch of these assholes, if you talk to them, they're science educators. They will lie to the public about the science in order to save Flint Dibble's face. When you go back 40 years, you didn't see dumbasses like Flint Dibble putting their foot in their mouth and solely...
I'm absolutely blushing. Clearly, Graham, you lied. You ain't done with me, baby. As Jason Colavito summarized in his review of this video, quote, "Most of the conversation involved expressing anger and upset at Flint Dibble. Not only did Graham mention me repeatedly, he dug in depth, playing clips from my YouTube videos and showing several of my tweets and published articles. Obsession, obsession. This is just sad. The pettiness of the best-selling author and TV show host we know as Graham Hancock reeks of absolute desperation." So, okay, this is Archaeology with Flint Dibble, and I am Flint Dibble. Let's dig in again on the archaeology wars that have taken over social media. Graham's new video was actually a recorded lecture from an event he hosted in April called The Fight for the Past. An ominous name, right? Which of course makes his tweet saying he was, quote, "done with me," even more of a lie. The tweet was posted only 3 days after this video was recorded, knowing he'd be publishing it later. Graham Hancock is simply put a liar. The event itself was a thinly veiled attempt to smear archaeologists. And guess what? I was enemy number one. Seriously, look at this. This was the shirt that Graham's co-presenter Dan Richards wore on stage for their conversation after this talk. After I saw Dan post this shirt on Twitter in a toxic post complete with a strap-on joke, I nicknamed it a Flint bashing event.
If they can get Graham Hancock to spend enough time fighting with the Flint Dibbles, then we don't get Ancient Apocalypse Season 3.
Yeah.
And so...
Yeah.
Fuck those guys. Sorry. Sorry.
It's very much about that.
Fabulous. I really hope we don't get Ancient Apocalypse Season 3. It's a stupid, trashy TV show. The reality is that from Graham to his top fans, they are absolutely obsessed with me. They love to say that they're not obsessed with slandering me and my colleagues, when in fact their entire shtick is projection and rage baiting. For example, Dan Richards claimed in a tweet last week that, quote, "Flint and John Hoops make their entire lives revolve around Graham Hancock, and then cry when people call them out for it. You guys are obsessed. Hypocrites on a level I seldom see in meat space." Dan, again, this is a lie and pure projection. I have made a total of 6 videos that focus on Graham Hancock, which pales in comparison to the 27 videos with over 9 hours of content that Dan has made with a focus on me.
Watching the debate, and everybody's like, "Oh, Flint won, Flint won, Flint won." It's like, dude, I noticed that Flint seems to be doubling down yet again on this sort of thing. I criticized Flint Dibble. Flint is a food guy. He deals with animal bones and seeds and shit, right? But he's going to weigh in on architecture like he's some expert. So a guy like Flint is actually, in my mind, he's kind of a traitor. I knew that as soon as Flint saw that, even though he's got the self-awareness of a slug, I knew that he was going to take one look at that and just be like, "Oh my God, Flint has gone crazy, scorched earth on me. You're just spouting out absurd bullshit while you try to debunk Graham Hancock. It's almost like people like Flint Dibble and John Hoops have established this kind of culture. I think Flint Dibble was kind of full of crap.
Everything was up in smoke after the whole Flint Dibble debacle.
I told him that Flint Dibble was a piece of shit, and Flint Dibble is a piece of shit. Flint just declared himself the special needs kid.
If anyone is obsessed, it's you, my man Dan. All you have to do is search my name on Dan Richards' Twitter profile, and you'll see that he's made hundreds, if not thousands, of posts mentioning me in the last couple of years. Look, man, I won't fuck you. I'm sorry, too much beard for me. Plus, I'm very happily married to an awesome partner who I love. And you, Dan, are absolutely obsessed with me. It's unhinged. Graham's post advertising the video on Thursday mentioned that archaeologists who debunk him are toxic. But just take a look at the content Dan creates about me. It's nasty and vile. The very definition of toxic. Graham, you were the one sharing the stage with this toxic troll who was wearing a t-shirt insulting me. A recent AI analysis of Dan and me on social media, shared by YouTuber Craig Ganford, even highlights Dan's obsession with me. It notes that Dan frequently makes personal attacks, and that this volume suggests dedicated content creation. Dan's own fans have noted that too many of the videos he makes are about me. Many have repeatedly asked him to, quote, move on and let go of his obsession with me. Their words. This strange fascination with me is also found in smaller anonymous accounts. Let's check out the Twitter persona called Flint Drivel that makes deep fake AI videos of me saying stupid shit.
Okay, so let's just once and for all debunk the stupid claims about the pyramids not being tombs. Let's focus on the facts and just use simple logic, which luckily is my strongest ability. So let's first take a look inside the king's chamber and see what we find in there. Do you guys notice the coffin? It's kind of hard to miss. But then the pseudo guys say, but that's just a box and a body was never found inside it. So now let me show how utterly stupid this type of argument is. Now take a look at this. Here we have another box. And yes, it is also empty, but I'm pretty sure there is supposed to be a body in there. Because just like the king's chamber, it's a damn coffin. Now that's a big checkmate.
Check and mate? Man, I need to steal some arguments from my AI doppelganger.
So I've been doing a little bit of thinking lately, and I've come to realize that our approach hasn't been the best at times. Maybe we shouldn't be so judgmental. Maybe our arrogance and smugness has a negative impact on the archaeology field.
What the hell are you talking about, Flint? Are you okay? You seem a bit different.
I mean, maybe we shouldn't act like complete jerks.
Wow, David Minion and Flint Drivel together? Seriously, these AI deepfake videos are getting way too good and clearly way too easy to make.
Welcome to another amazing episode of Flint Dibble Explains. Today we're going to take a closer look at the dangerous men of pseudo-archaeology. But before we begin, I'd like to thank all my fans for being a part of Team Science. I'm glad you did the right choice. So let me go through the pseudo network and lay it out for you. I've been mapping these shady characters for over 10 years now. I probably know more about these guys than they do themselves. First, we have Joe Hogan, who is the main guy to platform all these lunatics. He has way too much power and clearly has an anti-science agenda. He only had me on once, and that tells you all you need to know. Then we have the grandfather of pseudo-archaeology, Mr. Graham Hancock. He is especially dangerous because he looks like a nice old man, but trust me, the devil is whispering in his ear and everything he says is a lie.
Okay, these deep fakes are kind of eerie. These wacko copycat tactics happen in person too. In June, at the Cosmic Summit, the pseudo-archaeology organizers handed out masks with my photorealistic face. The hollow eyes give me the heebie-jeebies. And Graham's buddy, Randall Carlson, even got in on the action. I won't lie, the obsession this group has for me is just Creepy, man. Because of Graham Hancock and Joe Rogan, there is now a large Flint hate cult that has grown online.
The Flint Dibble approach. That guy embodies what you don't like about academia. You see him physically, he embodies it. It's like that's what it is. It's these weak men, these weird, kind of bitchy, weak men.
By the way, don't miss my video about Joe Rogan's obsession with me. I'm not gonna lie, Joe. Teaching pays shit. So it's absolutely generous of you to let me live rent-free in this dome of yours. It's rather spacious in here. I occupy so much space in their heads because I made Graham look like an absolute fool during my debate with him. Graham desperately wants to rewrite history and make you believe that I distort things, which is, of course, projection again. He regularly claims that I manipulate and control the media against him. Seriously. This tactic actually started during the debate itself.
Here we have, you have great influence on media and culture. You say that you just have a small YouTube channel, and that's true, Flint. You do have a small outreach on YouTube, but you have a much larger outreach with journalists. Flint and his colleagues have really created a huge fuss in the media about me. I mean, this is just a small example. Satan loves Graham Hancock the most.
But wait a minute.
Not me.
But hold on, they didn't post that, right?
Who?
That
No.
Satan loves Graham Hancock the most?
I'm talking about Flint's influence on media.
Can
and
I
culture.
make a quick
hold
comment?
on. But you can't connect Flint to that. Go back to that image again. You can't connect Flint to this.
Well, I
Can
can.
I make a quick comment?
But this Satan loves Graham Hancock the most is either one of two things. It's either an insane person or it's some sort of a propaganda campaign. It's someone who's trying to dismiss you or get the fundamentalist Christians against you.
It followed the onslaught on my work following the release of Ancient Apocalypse.
I understand, but this person might have gone after you anyway.
I'm talking about
Can I
the
make a quick comment
influence
about
on
my
media,
media
and culture.
influence?
Well,
a lot
I'm
of my
gonna-
media influence has to do with you announcing this conversation. The media rarely ever got in touch with me about you until you announced this conversation over a year ago. And then since then, I've had plentiful journalists get in touch with me to comment on things related to your show. So you're the one that's actually given me this media platform. I do not go to these journalists at all.
That's
They
simply not true.
contact me and
Well,
then...
which is great because that's why you're here. And
Yeah.
I'm happy you're here to do this. And
Thank you.
I think we could do this amicably.
But even after Joe pushed back, Graham kept bringing it up.
We just don't have time to go there. I'm
Okay.
actually giving a presentation on Flint's influence on media and culture, the influence that Flint and his colleagues have on media and culture.
I guess repeating it over and over and over and over again makes people believe it more.
But I would just love to just complete this little point that I want
Yes.
to make here, which is the influence of Flint and his colleagues on media and culture, who see me as public enemy number one and who have quite a substantial outreach in the media.
This is nuts. Even now, a year after the debate, I am a relatively unknown archaeologist. No TV show, no regular newspaper column, no million-dollar book deal. Graham Hancock was the one who gave me a media platform by announcing our debate in the style of a wrestling promoter. I've done my best to share real archaeology on YouTube, but more people still see his YouTube videos than mine. In Thursday's video, Graham yet again highlighted my media influence. He lies and says I organized a campaign for the Journal of Archaeological Prospection to retract a peer-reviewed paper about the site of Gunung, Padang, written by Graham's buddy, Danny Hillman Natawidjaya.
So here he is. He managed to get Danny's paper retracted. He brought archaeologists to put pressure on the journal, and eventually they crumbled under that pressure and they retracted the paper. Others. Why did poor Danny's work get attacked by archaeologists? Because he'd been on my show. It's as simple as that. If he hadn't been on my show, what happened to his paper would never have happened. He published a paper about Gunung Padang. That paper was peer-reviewed and it was accepted for publication. But then the Flint Dibbles and the John Hoops started to come in and spread all kinds of shit over all of this, and we get press articles. Really, really weak. Experts attack claim that Indonesia's site is world's oldest building. You know, it goes on. Here is Flint Dibble claiming that there's nothing at all to see at Gunung Padang, and we shouldn't waste our time on it. And Flint, being Flint has caused a lot of trouble for Danny.
This is a straight up lie. Much like Graham's promise not to mention me again. I never campaigned for the paper in question to be retracted. After Danny's paper was published, I was invited by 2 different journalists to comment on it. And I gave my opinion on the paper. And yes, I thought the paper was absolute shit. In order to prepare myself for the debate, I also invited the lead archaeologist who excavated Gunung Padang onto my YouTube channel, Dr. Lutfi Yondri, to share the real archaeology of Gunung Padang in Indonesia. He also thought the paper was shit. He didn't want to retract it, though. He wanted to write a response.
Isn't he primarily a modern disaster geologist?
Yes.
That's what I thought. What would you say is the date for Gunung Padang? I think you published in this article that it was the second and first century BCE is what I thought you said.
From I have excavation and many blocks of excavation at Gunung Padang. I try to excavate terrace wall. I try to find the old layer when the surface when Gunung Padang built in the past. I find charcoal from terrace 1, terrace 2, terrace 3, 7. The charcoal have a context. The charcoal have a matrix. The charcoal have associations, also provenience and related with a Gunung Padang structure. And then I send it to laboratory, laboratorium dating. I get the dating of Gunung Padang structure as a culture remind coming from 117 years before century.
This is all I did with regards to Gunung Padang. I never contacted the journal or its editors. I never organized the media attention around it, and I never convinced my colleagues to pressure the journal to retract the paper. Graham Hancock is spouting straight up lies about me and my influence that have no basis in reality. I am not some all-powerful archaeologist who controls this stuff.
As far as I know, I have never ever told knowingly an untruth. What a stupid thing to do that would be. That would scupper my whole work.
Yeah, exactly.
I may have made some honest mistakes. Everybody does, including the most godlike archaeologist. But I have never knowingly told an untruth, and I never would.
Of course not.
I do, however, live in a society that is supposed to value free speech. And when I am asked for my opinion, I will give it. Now, Graham did not want to talk about the real archaeology of Gunung Padang during the debate because he knew I'd done my research by talking with Professor Lutfi Yondri.
Being done is the interpretation of that made by Danny and his team past a year.
Which is just this that we're looking at here?
No, there's much more. But we just don't have time to go there. I'm actually giving a presentation on Flint's influence on media and culture, and we're getting drawn into a
But it's important because it's something that comes up, and I want to clarify. So
Lutfi had showed me photographs of his excavation and where the radiocarbon dates that dated the architecture came from. Graham often likes to highlight that radiocarbon can't directly date stone. In several contexts, he implies that this makes archaeologists wrong about the dates of megalithic monuments.
So everything, in a sense, is speculation. What isn't speculation is the dating. I have grave doubts about carbon dating in many cases, because carbon dating doesn't date stone. It dates organic materials. So the notion that you can date a megalithic site with carbon dating is questionable right away.
He has suggested many times that archaeologists' dates for these monuments are just pure speculation.
And archaeology does not have a good explanation about what they're there for, or why they were built, or when they were built. They're all cut out of stone. You can only date objects that were left in them. You can't say when they were actually made.
Graham, of course, wants earlier dates that match his proposed civilization. Or as he puts it with his catchphrase,
the question is, when did it happen? This is why I sometimes wear a T-shirt, and I did on the last show with you, which says stuff just keeps on getting older.
Yes.
And a lot of people don't understand what
this point here is a blatant lie from Graham about how archaeology actually works. And it's relevant to Gunung Padang. Remember, this was a site focused on in season 1 of Ancient Apocalypse, the very first episode. And it's relevant to Gunung Padang. As Lutfi Yondri showed me, he dated charcoal found in layers underneath the monuments, meaning the monuments were built on top of soil that was already there. And the charcoal in that soil was radiocarbon dated to a little before 100 BC, many samples of it. So the monuments on top of the soil dated to that time or later. But Danny Hillman Natawidyaya dug a core going 7 whole meters below the monuments at Gunung Padang. He didn't find any archaeology from so deep, but he did find organic material, which could just be natural stuff, and that could be radiocarbon dated. He published the dates from these deep cores as early as 20,000 BC, which tells us also that the monuments were built after 20,000 BC. But it doesn't prove they were built earlier than around 100 BC. In fact, the monuments couldn't be built so early because the many radiocarbon dates Dr. Yonthri provided came from layers under each of the monumental terraces built at Gunung Padang. The soil directly under them was consistently dated to around 100 BC, so the monuments were built from around that time or slightly later. It's pretty damn clear, overwhelming evidence. I told journalist Robin McKee in the Guardian Observer after reading Danny's paper, quote, "If you went to the Palace of Westminster and dropped a core 7 meters into the ground and pulled up a soil sample, you might date it as being 40,000 years old. But that does not mean the Palace of Westminster was built 40,000 years ago by ancient humans. It just means there's carbon down there that's 40,000 years old. It is extraordinary that this paper has been published. Look, I stand by my opinion. This paper is absolute shit. And I am personally glad such a shitty paper was retracted. But I had nothing directly to do with that retraction. I just did my research into the paper in preparation for my debate with Graham and provided my opinion when asked. Nothing more, nothing less. I am not a godlike archaeologist. The reality is that Graham is the celebrity with a large platform. He is the one that's featured on Netflix and with best-selling books and hundreds of articles written about him in various media outlets. And he has no shame at all in using this influence to obsess over me. Last fall, Ancient Apocalypse Season 2 was released in October. And that month, when he did a tour promoting the show, he devoted much of his airtime on large podcasts to trashing my name.
I did a debate on the Joe Rogan Experience back in April 2024 with an archaeologist called Flint Dibble. And his position is we archaeologists go from the known to the unknown. And that's quite the opposite of my position, which is I go from the unknown to the known. It's the unknown that I'm interested in.
So what's your takeaway from that debate?
Well, my takeaway from that debate is that I should have been better prepared, and I should have been less angry. I have to say that Flint had really disturbed me with these constant snide, not quite exact references. When I look at the reaction of a lot of these individuals, what I see fundamentally is jealousy and envy. They see that I'm getting exposure in front of a mass public, and they think it should be theirs. So in fact, I'll say something about John Hoops and Flint Dibble in this context, which is that if individuals who define themselves as archaeologists find themselves spending more and more of their lives just attacking the work of other people, well, what archaeology are they doing? What uses? What have they contributed to human knowledge? When I look at Flint Dibble and I look at John Hoops, the answer I come to is virtually zero. They've contributed nothing to human knowledge. They're not going to make a mark on history. Nothing in the work that they've done is going to have any effect or any significance a generation or two from now.
People like Flint just out and out lie to try to dismiss these things.
It was most unfortunate. I think he let archaeology down very badly in the way that he manipulated that debate.
This is all fucking bullshit. An attempt to smear my name to save his own credibility for not showing up prepared to defend his fantasy against facts. But the reality is that in the end, Graham is the celebrity and I am not. He is the one who counts mega celebrities among his friends and allies. And he knows this. After all, in Thursday's video, during his discussion with Dan Richards, he says,
Out there on the internet is a class of parasite. And that class of parasite looks for people who have got some level of recognition, who have perhaps large numbers of followers, who've become prominent in some way. And then the technique is to attack that person in every possible way you can, to insult them, to try to humiliate them. And this is what draws in audiences. And
So, Graham, which is it? Am I a godlike archaeologist who controls the media, or a lowly parasite who feeds off your celebrity and attacks you? The reality, of course, is neither. I am simply a scholar who offered to debate you because you created a hostile and toxic environment. You kept insulting archaeologists and scholars.
Perhaps there's been a forgotten episode in human history. Perhaps its fingerprints are present at a number of sites around the world, but perhaps the extremely defensive, arrogant, and patronizing attitude of mainstream academia is stopping us from considering that possibility, and therefore I campaign to get that possibility considered, and I try to do so with as loud a voice as possible.
No, man. You were the arrogant one to challenge a debate with real archaeologists who know their shit. When Professor John Hoops refused, you aggressively called him a coward.
In a face-to-face encounter is cowardice. And I'm not going to debate any other archaeologist live on Joe Rogan's show. The moment that John Hoops, my principal critic, chooses to come out of the shadows and meet me face-to-face, I will debate him on the Joe Rogan Experience, and Joe has made that platform available for that. But I don't want any of these other minor figures who are simply trying to ride off my reputation to boost their own profile. I want the main antagonist, and that's John Hoops from the University of Kansas, and John Hoops from the University of Kansas is a coward.
I had had enough of these insults, this hatred towards me and my colleagues. So look, I accepted your challenge. I did the necessary homework, and I took you to school.
Graham, I'm going to keep showing you areas that we have evidence for. Why do we have so much evidence for ephemeral hunter-gatherers, but not evidence from an advanced civilization that is global? That should leave behind monuments that are far easier to find. Instead, what we get are plentiful sites outside and in caves that show coastal interactions. We have evidence of these hunter-gatherers interacting with the coastlines.
Your only response was to acknowledge that there was no archaeological evidence to support your point of view.
But can we say there's no evidence for an advanced civilization in what they have studied?
In what they have studied, yes, we can say there's no evidence for an advanced civilization.
Surprisingly, instead of saying you made a mistake and misspoke, you try to twist this point like you twist everything else. Your response in Thursday's video was that
that's the key point. I don't study what archaeologists study. Sure, there's a lot of really useful and valuable information that archaeology has generated that is highly valued by me. But I'm not an archaeologist, and I'm not looking at this as an archaeologist, and I'm much less interested in artifacts that can be weighed, measured, and counted than I am in other issues.
So look, if you don't study what archaeologists study, then why do you travel to archaeological sites and describe archaeological artifacts and monuments in your TV shows and books and lectures? That's what you focus on, man. You're just trying to twist reality.
Is it possible that some of the monuments of ancient Egypt are actually much older than the Egyptologists tell us?
If you don't study what archaeologists study, then why did you insist on challenging real archaeologists to a debate about archaeology? And why are you so obsessed with me, an archaeologist? Let's let AI Flint Drivel answer that one.
I've seen several people accuse me of getting famous because of my smears and attacks against Graham Hancock, but let's be real about it. No one knew who he was before I put him on the map. It wasn't until after I destroyed his whole career on the Joe Rogan podcast that he got famous. So it's actually thanks to me that Graham is famous now, and guess what? He never said thank you. Not even once.
That's right, Graham. Where the hell is my thank you? The reality is that you, Graham Hancock, are the parasite. You feed off of the hard work of thousands of archaeologists. You twist our evidence to grow your wealth and fame. And because I've exposed your weak-ass claims, you are now obsessed with me. And you've added a Flint hate cult to your cult of fake archaeology. But look, I will not be cowed. I will keep sharing real archaeology with the world and show how weak your arguments are. with evidence, one by one, we will peel the followers away from your cult of fake archaeology so that more people see the wonder and beauty of our diverse human past that is grounded in real archaeological evidence. So that more people recognize the value of cultural heritage and the hard work that archaeologists do to uncover and preserve our past. Thank you all for listening. It's not easy to defend myself against such large celebrities. So please take a moment to give the video a like and a comment to feed that algorithm and to help my voice be heard. And do me a favor and check out one of my videos about real archaeology. Maybe this one on the geological vapors at Delphi. Apollo's sanctuary at Delphi is the stuff of legends. For over 1,000 years, the famous oracle foretold the futures and fortunes of the city-states and heroes of ancient Greece. This video explores whether the priestess was stoned on geological vapors. It's got drugs and rock and roll. It's a real banger. Until next time, love and archaeology to all. Flint Dibble out.
Rhymes and riddles, tickle, tickle, giggles, squiggle, jiggle, fiddle, Flint and Dibble. Rhymes and riddles, tickle, tickle, giggles, squiggle, jiggle, fiddle, dibble, 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 dibble. Flint and Dibble.